Hello. I'd like you to spend 30 minutes with me right now, orienting yourself to the best use of the commentary by Dr. Murray J. Harris. I want to give you some information and some guidelines to help you do that. First of all, some background. Murray Harris is Professor Emeritus of New Testament Exegesis and Theology at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School in Deerfield, Illinois. I studied with him there when I was in seminary, and I learned more Greek from him than I ever have from anyone else. A little more about him. After leaving Trinity in 1980, he was for a time the warden of Tyndale House in Cambridge, a study house for biblical studies, and now he's retired and living back in his home in New Zealand. He earned his doctoral degree from the University of Manchester in England, and he studied under Professor F.F. Bruce. He's written many books and articles. He was the editor for the EGGNT handbooks, like the one you're using on 2 Corinthians by Colin Kruse. And he wrote the EGGNT handbooks for the Gospel of John, Paul's letter to the Colossians, and Philemon, and James, all of which I highly recommend. And his commentary on 2 Corinthians is still considered one of the very best, if not the very best, exegetical, grammatical commentary on 2 Corinthians. So, how to best use this big book? I want you to browse through it now with me. So if you haven't got it on hand, pause the video and go get it. Now, first, notice the features at the front of the commentary in the table of contents. Notice the introduction and its various sections. Notice the section headings. They deal with the world within the text, where Dr. Harris discusses what he calls literary issues related to the text as a whole and to its sections. He does this in the introduction in sections A and D. It treats the world behind the text. Dr. Harris discusses what he calls historical issues about the whole letter and 2 of its major sections on the collection and the opponents. These are found in introduction, section B and C. And Dr. Harris deals with the world in front of the text, where he discusses the theology that emerges from 2 Corinthians, which can and should continue to affect our lives, in section E of the introduction. Now, secondly, notice the features at the back of the commentary, the very back of the commentary. In the very back of the commentary, you'll find first an expanded paraphrase. This is a translation paraphrase made by a master Greek grammarian who is trying to put all that he sees the Greek saying into English words. The second thing you'll find here is the index of Greek words. This is a treasure trove for word studies on Greek words that are found in 2 Corinthians that Dr. Harris includes throughout the commentary. And of course, some of those same words you will find elsewhere in the New Testament too. So even when you're working on a different New Testament book, it pays to take a moment and check out the index of Greek words to see if Dr. Harris has had anything to say about a word that you're working on. Third, you'll find the normal indexes for subjects, grammatical, theological, etc., and authors. Third thing I want you to pay attention to in the commentary is what you can find if you dip into part of what Harris has to say about our text for this week. Let's do that and take an example so that we can find some things. Open his commentary now to 2 Corinthians chapter 1 and verse 3. I'll give you a moment to do that. Pause the video, and then I'll come back. Now you're in 2 Corinthians chapter 1 and verse 3. I want you to notice the process that Dr. Harris goes through as he treats every section in 2 Corinthians. First of all, he begins by locating verse 3 in its section in chapter 1, verses 3 through 7. Next, he provides a bibliography for the section, indicating others who've written just about this one particular section. And he provides a brief introduction to this section and a translation of the section. And it's always interesting to compare the translation with the expanded paraphrase. which is in the back of the commentary, because the paraphrase expands the translation. Next, Dr. Harris provides notes on the text, notes about variant readings in various New Testament manuscript copies. If you want to know more about variant readings and textual criticism, you can read Mounce chapter 31, but that's not required of you during our course. I suggest you read it afterwards if you're interested. After these initial things, Dr. Harris moves into the commentary on the section and its background. And finally, he moves on to comment specifically on verse 3. Notice he uses the Greek text throughout this section, making it especially useful to people like you now that you know a little Greek and know how to use your pocket dictionary and the index in deeper Greek and in the back of Mounce. Like you learned as you interacted with Novakovich and Klink, you find a lot in Harris' commentary that you may need to look up in a resource like your pocket dictionary. That's okay. Read Dr. Harris' commentary in the way you learn to read Novakovich and Klink. Read it selectively and read it interactively. Do your own work on the text first. Find the places in the text that interest you. Then search to see if Harris makes any comment on them. Then, if you have time, go beyond that. Read more of his commentary on 2 Corinthians, chapter 1, verses 1 through 11 this week. Follow his process, and this big commentary will not overwhelm you. Instead, you'll learn how to use it, moving from English translation through interaction with the Greek text on your own with your software to finally move to Harris's commentary. And when you're done with the points that have interested you, go on and read a little bit more of Harris's commentary, where you might be wanting to supplement what you've seen beyond your own studies so far. One last thing to know. Dr. Harris writes very carefully, as you would expect from someone who is a grammarian. Like Klink, his commentary will seem dense at first. You may need to read it slowly or reread it to grasp what it's saying. Take your time. Do that. It will be worth it to go slowly and selectively. Typically, Harris uses topical sentences at the beginning of each paragraph to indicate the subject or specific point he's going to focus on in the paragraph. Let those first sentences guide you to know what the paragraph is going to be about. That's it from me. I hope this is going to be helpful to you as you interact with Harris's commentary this week and continuing through the rest of our course.